got Melissa, my brother David's daughter, and her daughter Michaela, my son-in-law, Darren, my cousin, Scott Sheppard. His family had this farm right here where we're standing. You have Maggie, and that's everything. So anyhow, this is Sheppard Farms. This is out in front of the present building. This is where they came from, where the Sheppard brothers came from. In 1683, 4 brothers left Ireland and came here. This, I actually started this with his grandmother who lived here in the house. She gave me the initial information, and you can see I fleshed it out quite a bit.
So, like a genealogy chart.
Well, I need somebody to write it with better handwriting than me. But anyhow, the Sheppard came from England to Ireland. And they fought with Oliver Cromwell. If anybody remembers who Oliver Cromwell was, he was the leader of the parliamentary army who fought the King of England. And back in that day, if you lost a war, they cut your head off. So the King of England, who was a Catholic, they cut his head off. And he and Oliver Cromwell became the Lord Protector. They wanted to make him king, but he didn't want to be king. He was the Lord Protector of Ireland. And the 4 Sheppard brothers fought with him on his side. And they rewarded him with a castle in Tipperary Island. And Maggie and Patty and I went there. This is the castle. A castle is just a building with thick walls where you could defend it. It was up on a hill. And this is what the castle looked like there. When I saw the Castle John, this was going to be a pretty neat place. Well, it was in the day. This is the farm around it there. Beautiful, but full of rocks. All those rocks that built that castle came from the fields. Mm-hmm. And if you ride down the road in Ireland or England, you'll have about a 20-foot, not even that, 15-foot strip with block walls or stone walls on either side. Only enough room for one car. If anybody comes the other way, somebody's got to find a driveway to get into to get out of the way. This is the other side of the castle. This is Maggie and I. Again, this was in 15?
13.
This is in 1683 they left it. Anyhow, the brothers were rewarded with this block of land in Ireland in 1651. They left in 1683. So they were there 32 years. So they didn't leave as soon as Cromwell was out of power. Cromwell was Lord Protector for like 7 or 8 years, then he died. So they buried him in Westminster Abbey, Westminster Chapel, and they made his son the Lord Protector. Things didn't go well for the son. They weren't very successful. England was in bad shape. So they just said, we're going to get a king back. So they got the king, they cut their head off, got his son, brought him in, he took over. They hung, drawed, and quartered Cromwell's son. Does anybody know what draw and quarter mean? Yeah. They hook a horse to either arm and either leg and pull you apart. Not only do that, Cromwell had been dead for 5 years. They dug him up and draw and quartered his body. And then made a law that his head could not be buried, could not be ever reunited with his body. They finally, about 50 years ago, decided they'd relent on that. So times are hard around the world. Even though I'm real proud that Sheppards have been here a long time, they left where they were for a reason. This is the pump at Castle John. This is the only thing I knew existed there when we went there. I'd seen a picture of Castle John on the pump, and so we'll go there. We just riding around, we rented a car and riding around. We went there, and I didn't know any more, but there was a house nearby. So I decided, what can I lose? I'm going to go see if anybody knows about Castle John. This Irish lady was real pleasant. She said, oh, yeah, just go back down the road here a little ways. So I got to see the other stuff. That's Oliver Cromwell with the arms and legs. This is the typical picture of the coast of Ireland. This is the west coast of Ireland, near the Cliffs of Moher. It's real famous. But look at that. And this is the Atlantic Ocean. 3,200 miles that way is the U.S. And to get on a boat and spend 6 to 10 weeks on a little wooden boat to come here had to have a feeling you were going to better yourself. It wasn't that you were some big important person over there. You needed to get out of there for some reason, and you were hoping to better yourself. So that's Eclipse of Morning. It's real when you stand up here and look out. It's amazing. Little color to the family tree. One of my ancestors up here, Goody Garlic. She was on trial for witchcraft. And this is yours too, Scott. You got witches.
I've heard this story.
But I actually found a public story about it. I didn't. It was just a family rumor. But anyhow, she was tried for witchcraft and found innocent. Now, I always understood to be found innocent of witchcraft, you died from the trial. In other words, they burned you at the stake because you were supposed to be a witch. If you survived the burning, you were a witch. They had to kill you some other way. But if you died, well, maybe you weren't a witch. But you're dead. But according to this article, that when the trial was all done, not only was she found innocent, but the family that she was with that brought about this whole thing took her back in, and she and her family stayed there for years. But the other interesting thing is, here is my mother's side of the family, the Davises. Falk Davis, his wife was the one that accused Elizabeth Garlic of being a witch up in Long Island. So even though that's a family history there. This is the Davis family. This is my mother when she was about 2. I'm thinking, so this had to be, my mom was born in 18, that had to be 1920, somewhere like that. I looked down on the 1920, yeah. But yeah, that's a typical farm in that area. All the aunts, uncles, cousins. Looks like the Clampett family. These are my grandfather. This is Timothy. That's also Scott's great-grandfather, my great-grandfather, my grandfather. His brother, Howard, had this farm. Okay. It was Hamel Seed Farms. Yeah. Scott explained it to me the other day. Howard married Mildred Bateman, and her...
Also from Cedarville.
All of them, yeah, lived on
Edgewood.
Edgewood Avenue.
Well, yeah.
The house is still there, right?
Yeah. I'll have to give you the advertisement for the house when they bought it.
Okay.
1918, I think it is. I still have the advertisement.
But anyhow, they're the two brothers, they're the father and son that farmed on Sarah's Neck, down where my brother David has his farm down.
There's a big age difference between your grandfather and my grandfather.
And that was typical. That my grandfather was like 10 years older than his, and then my father was 10 years younger than his brother. Wow. Sheppards weren't good procreators, I guess. They forgot how it happened. But this is the Sheppard Farms tractor. It was supposed to be the first tractor in the Cedarville area. And this boiler, it was a steam-powered tractor, and the boiler is still down at the farm where Melissa lives. It's there outside the building. When they got done using it for a tractor, they used it for a heater for the greenhouses, and it powered saws for the steam. They had a full sawmill down there. In the wintertime, the men stayed working, and they'd cut wood and cut it up and make crates with it, etc. This is that farm down there. Melissa's house is over here. That's the house my dad was born in. This house has since burned down, but that's where my brother David lives. We built a new house there. But again, this horse and buggy, Timothy's standing there. His wife Sarah Western Sheppard is here. Uncle Howard is there. Over here you've got my grandfather Gilbert, his wife Mary Claypool, Uncle Selwyn, and my father is a 1-year-old in his mother's arms here. So he was born, Dad was born in 1915, so this is a year later. This is the farm down there. What's on the sign? What was Timothy bought it? When was it? It's on the sign out front.
I want to say 1880.
It's in 1800, yeah. So
1863.
Timothy married Sarah Westcott. The Westcott farm was where Kenny Hildreth farms now. That was the Westcott farm. So he married her, and then he bought this farm here. This is a map of Sheppard Farms as it exists now. The Westcott farm was over here. And Granddad's farm is right down here from us. There's Uncle Howard with a truckload of tomatoes. I don't know if you were there, Joe, when we were having stacked tomatoes.
Yeah.
We went from basket tomatoes to bin tomatoes to bulk tomatoes, but a lot of these tomatoes from this area were put on a barge in Bridgeton and barged to Maryland to be processed there, before we had all the can houses in Cedarville. That's my mother and father there. This is, over time, the development of Sheppard Farm. When my dad was in World War II, he came home and he tried to farm with his dad and his brother. His brother was 10 years older than him, and he was a man's man. But if you didn't work as hard as he did, he didn't want you around. Dad had shrapnel in his arm from World War II, and Dad thought, his theory was, I want to farm smart, not hard. He and his brother did not get along.
Wow.
So Dad left, actually ran a greenhouse up in Walking Hill for a little while. Then he came and he bought this farm. He bought this house with 3 buildings, 8-inch tractor, a plow and disc, 40 acres of ground for $10,000. Which we think that's nothing, but again, $10,000 then was a lot of money. A man probably made $1 a day.
Yeah.
So this was the original farm. That's where I grew up. That's where Joe came to work for us.
Yeah.
Until when 3 brothers came back from college, Mom told us one thing: don't be a farmer. So we all 3 went away to college and studied different things. David was an agronomist, and that's what he always liked. He always liked growing plants. Erwin was an ag engineer, and that's what he liked. He liked machines and building stuff. I was a marketing and business management major, and my forte was on the bullshit. So I was pretty good at selling stuff. So we came back to the farm. At this time, Dad was farming some of his father's ground. So we're farming about 110 acres at that time. And over time, we went from that. When I got back from college, we decided to do more packing of our own stuff. We did a lot of contract stuff. Clement Papp was out here. We grew tomatoes for them. We grew beans for Seabrook. But this farm across the street was the old Graves farm. A man named Puglisi had bought it, and his idea was he was going to build chicken houses on it. He has a chicken farm up in North Jersey, well, in Central Jersey, Howe, New Jersey. So we rented this packing house and shop and all that. So we operated out of that from 1979, or not, at 76 to 79, and then we've gone on to it some more. And I have to get you another picture. There was a structure here, and the night of Saturday after Thanksgiving, 1998, we had a fire. It burnt all our shipping facilities down to the ground. The fire company was able to keep this protected, so all our packing house was here, so we were all right. But we built off from 1999 to the present. We went 99, we built this. 07 built that. Some more 99 here. In 2011, we bought the last expansion. But this was from an article that was written in 1979. Were you working with us then, Joe?
Yeah, it's part-time.
It was a New Jersey Monthly Magazine, sent a reporter down. He actually spent 3 or 4 days with us, and wrote a really good article in New Jersey Monthly Magazine. But you got Dad, my brother Erwin, David, and me. See, I wasn't married yet. See, I still had hair, and I was in pretty good shape. Now I'm old, lost most of my hair, fat. I got married. Now he doesn't take the blame. This is a picture of the family in front of the old house across the street. Got Mom and Dad, Patty and myself. David, and Carol, Erwin and Donna, my nephew Brandon, and this is Uncle Sullivan.
Uncle Sullivan.
He never had much to say. He was a really good athlete. He was a really good ball player. Didn't have much to say. And he eventually, he got down on his farm where he was the only employee. He planted it, he harvested it, he hauled it to Philadelphia at night. He was a one-man band. Like I said, nobody worked hard enough for him. And so he just did all. So never got married. I don't know if anybody in here remembers Mom Hepner.
Yeah.
Joe Hepner's mother. She was quite a character. She owned a bunch of apartments in Bridgeton, and she would collect the rent. And she was a tough lady. She got her rent. But anyhow, one day she came to the farm to get some beans. She said, I blame myself for your uncle never getting married. I said, what do you mean? What did you do? He said, we were walking to school one day. There was a schoolhouse on Sarah's Neck, the corner, a one-room schoolhouse where they went the first 3 years of school. He said, we were walking to school one day, and your uncle came up behind me and decided he was going to kiss me. So he kissed me, and I threw him on the ground, broke his collarbone. He would never talk to a woman after that. I asked Dad to verify that. He said, I didn't know that. Here's the progression again. Here's 1992, where we've added a shipping facility to the back of the old packing house. In here, in 1984, we started Eastern Fresh Growers to sell our product. It was initially us and Dick's Brothers, big lettuce farmer from Backneck in Fairfield Township. And then the fire took all this out in the end of '98. We rebuilt this between 99 and 2002 there. And then that last one is the last expansions. I'll have a better picture of that later. This is the crew now. We had a big party on Dad's, what would have been Dad's 100th birthday. We had a big party at the farm, so we took a lot of pictures. We, Sheppard Farms and Eastern Fresh Growers farm, employs about 230 people now. And thank God for the Mexicans. There's a lot of controversy now about immigrants, and we're all immigrants. We all came from somewhere. And if we didn't have these guys come and harvest our crop, you wouldn't be eating any fresh market vegetables from the U.S. because there's nobody born and raised in the U.S. to go out there and do that. Yeah. I did it. My brothers did it. It used to be called a line. In lettuce, you'd have a cutter, 2 cutters, and a packer. So Erwin and David were the cutters, and I was the packer. We used to throw the lettuce or cabbage or whatever in a big pile between us, and then you sort through and pack it. The Mexicans came around, and you talk about efficiency. They put it down in lines of 3s. You pick it up, wedging a head between the 2 and put it in the box. It was so much neater. The buyers got so, we don't want any of that stuff you guys pack. We want the stuff the Mexicans pack. It was beautiful. They just do a wonderful job, and they'll figure out an easier way to do things. There's Maggie. She designed these boxes for us. This is our present day asparagus box. Both the 28-pounder and the 11-pounder. This is the shipping facility as it exists today. I had how many square feet it was, but this is quite a large facility. Back down here, you can see now our housing for the men. We decided back in about 2010 the place we needed to approach next in improving the company was our housing for the men. There's a whole lot of these cinder block buildings around Cedarville area where the men lived. They were built in the 50s. So just cinder block walls, not too fancy. These places have cable TV, air conditioning heaters, washers, dryers. They got it all.
It's a nice picture.
Is that one of yours?
Who's your photographer, your daughter?
No, my son-in-law did that with his drone. The drones don't do all bad things. There's a typical field. This is the, we call it Doc Sheppard field. It's down in Jones Island, all the way at the end. This used to be poplar brands. We bought it from poplar brand. You can see the bay. Yeah. And actually, I think that's water. There's dikes around all that land down there. And a dike is a ditch with the dirt from the ditch thrown up here as an impediment to the tides. during Sandy, when they had that extreme high tide right after Sandy, it breached a little bit right here, and a little bit on Sarah's Neck we had a breach, but everything else held. This is the East Sheppard Farms, the Eastern Press Growers today. With me, my son Alex, Fran, Melissa's husband, and my nephew Brandon. Now, I want to come here. This is an actual map of the farm as it grew over time. Dad's 40 acres that he bought for $10,000 is here. Granddad, where Melissa lives, is down the road. Dad is here. Those two here. Over the years, we bought neighbors' farms. This farm down here was the Howell farm. That farm has been in the same family for longer than any farm in New Jersey. The Howells were descendants of the Sayers, and this is called Sayers Neck. So that they're holding farm here. This farm here, Uncle Howard farmed it. There was a Layton and the Sneed farm. The Waltie farm here. A lot of these names are names that Dad called them. I never knew anybody by that name, but so they're preceded there. So over time, we consolidated these various farms. This farm here was the Graves farm, Sherman and Shorty Graves. So we started. We put Sarah's Neck together. This is another Graves farm. We rent that from a young couple that bought that a few years ago. We are here now. This is the Hamel Seed Farm. Scott's grandfather owned that. All these fields here we rent from the state of New Jersey, which is not too bad a deal. But you got to promise to do certain things. When you rent land from the state of New Jersey, you've got to plant stuff in there for the animals. The fringe areas, there's all kinds of things out there for the animals to eat, to encourage hunting. And you cross the Iron Bridge, which is now cement. Cross that, and we farm Skippy Bowman's ground here. Powell Farm, Betty Ann's grandfather's farm. When did you stop farming?
Oh my, who knows, 50s, 60s, I don't know.
So anyhow, we farmed that. Well, we actually sold this stuff here. We sold in 2022. We decided we were going to need to cut back, so we sold this to a company out of Indiana, and there was a farmer from Elmer that's farming it now, Mike Brooks. But then this land down in Jones Island, like I said, this was Popper Brand. This was Romano Farms, Louis Romano. We bought that from him. Sorrentino had all this here. This was another Howe farm here. This is an interesting history with that. This farm has upland that goes right to the creek. It's right behind where Carmela used to live. Because it had upland that went right to the creek, it was a good place to smuggle in booze. Because they could bring it out on a boat out in the bay and put it on small boats and bring it up the creek.
Oh yeah.
And Mr. Howe had a bullpen back next to his house, and under the bullpen he had made a room where he would store the alcohol until he could move it out. And if the revenue was staying, they weren't going anywhere near that bowl, so they didn't know it was there, they didn't go in there. But one day, rumor has it, Mr. Howe was taking a load of alcohol towards Millville, and Millville Road. The revenuers caught up to him around the Keel Farm, and he ran his truck into the woods, wrecked it against a tree, and then started running. They got him. So yeah, we had down at the Historical Society in Greenwich, we had a speaker not too long ago about rum running in Cumberland County. It's pretty interesting. There was remember the old Cumberland Hotel? There was a vantage point on top of that where they would watch for lights from the boats in the bay. The boats would signal them when it was okay to come out. so yeah, colorful. But yeah, that Eastern Fresh at Sheppard Farms at its peak was 1,500 acres. Of all these here, these are all wells. All these numbers here are wells, and these are from the state of New Jersey, licensed for the wells. You can't just drill a hole and pump it. You've got to get all kinds of permission to do that. So that is Sheppard Sheppard Farms, and Eastern Crust Growers now does all this packing and sales for Sheppard Farms. Again, this is the family tree. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm 11. So Melissa is 12, and Mikhail is 13 generations.
Amen. Well,
I guess I didn't figure out anything better to do. Scott's dad was here till 69, right, Scott?
Yeah.
And then he got a good job with Rutgers at the research farm. Any questions?
wow.
I just
A lot of information.
I remember your uncle, you said he was a man of few words. I remember the time his house was burning down.
There you go.
We were working in the greenhouses in back of the house, and I remember me, Don Keel, Tom, maybe Russ, a couple other guys putting plants in, and Uncle Solon came to the door of the greenhouse and stood there. Tom says, "Uncle Solon, can I help you?" "I think my house is burning down." That's all I said.
Wow.
And Tom went running out, the rest of us went running out, and sure enough, there was smoke just pouring out of his house, an electrical short.
Yep.
And I remember just running down. Don got a fire extinguisher out of the truck, one of the trucks. And you know, you're young, you're stupid. We run into open the door, smoke pouring out, and you could see the wire was like glowing red hot. And Don squirted it down with the fire extinguisher, and then I remember Roy Sharp cut the lines to the house,
Right.
the power lines. But I think my house is burning down.
He had a lot to say.
How about that?
But he just stood there. I was like, we're like,
You'd think he'd be screaming.
He didn't get wound up.
Wasn't him.
But yeah, so that was down here.
yeah.
And there's a lot
Show
of
on the
equipment.
map,
What's that?
I'm sorry to interrupt, I'm gonna say, show on the map where your field is next to my house on Maple Avenue.
That's Skip right here.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Because I've kind of got lost as to where I am on
So
that
you're
map.
right there.
Okay,
Yeah.
what are you gonna put in it this year?
That's my son's category.
Okay.
I think cucumbers. I'm not sure of that. We cleaned all these ditches out, so we got to move a lot of that stuff out of there. That's the thing about farming in this area. I told you about dikes. There's dikes all around all these fields in Jones Island. In Sayers Neck, there's dikes around all these fields here. So we're real sensitive to tides and excessive rain. State of New Jersey says if you dig a ditch to drain your field, that means you have wetland. But you would think it means you're smart enough to try to get that water off.
Right.
So yeah, we fight with them all the time about what's wetland and what's not, what ditches we can clean, what we can't. So the state of New Jersey says if you clean them every 5 years, you don't have to have a permit, but if you let it go longer, you have to come back to them for a really expensive permit.
Wow.
There was an article in that New Jersey Monthly magazine, the reporter was saying, the only time he ever saw my brother David get mad was he was relating the story of building the dike behind their house. That is here. David came back from Cornell. All three of us graduated from Cornell. David came back in 72, Erwin 71, and I was 76. But they dug, Uncle Selwyn sold David this half of the farm, and Erwin this half of the farm. So they put this dike in here. And they put it inside of the old dike. The old dike went across this way, clearly in the marsh, but they just put it over here. So the state of New Jersey came down and told him he had to take his dike down because he didn't get a permit for it.
Oh,
And that got him wound up. You ever see that get mad? Well, anyhow, but so they worked it out, and that dike's been there for 50, 60 years.
Yeah, I remember when that happened.
Yeah. But yeah, back in the day, a man was a man, and they dug these dikes with a shovel.
Yep.
And there was an art to throwing mud. You ever been out in marsh? Marsh mud is wet, so they would throw shovel tool, and they would land over here and make the dike. So that's where we had a guy. You remember Earl Pancoast worked for us? Old guy from Lower Alloys Creek. spent his life doing that kind of work, and he was telling us about how they used to build these things. So they'd have a pile of dirt this high and get to that deep from just shovels. Men were men and women were glad of it. So yeah, so that's one of the trials down here. Of course, anybody that lives in Cedarville knows about greenheads and mosquitoes. Yeah, we live with them. I brought Patty down from the big city of Bridgeton, and she's pretty much used to it, right?
You never get used to greenheads. Never get used to that.
But you
It's
find
never
out,
been as bad.
we live here. David and Melissa and them are a mile and a quarter down the road here. They're twice as bad
Yes.
there as they are here.
How about that?
So closer you get to the swamp, they tell me if you get out in the bay, they're not bad. You're away from the
Where's the Kendrick farm on that, Tom? It used to be
that would be
that one.
We
Yeah,
call it
that was
Lake-
right on the corner.
Leighton Farm here.
That little L-shaped or J-shaped field there, and the right under your foot. Keep going
This
down
back
that
here?
one. I remember disking that field in the middle of the summertime, being dressed head to toe with just. I looked like an arrow. I looked like just a slit because the greenheads were so bad down there. Just,
One year or several years, we rented the Keel Farm out in Center
Yeah.
Road. And Richard Ransom was working for us, and Mike Fortick.
Yep.
And we sent them out there with tractors, and they were down to just trunks, driving tractor. And you don't do that in Sarah's Net. They just thought that was, they didn't want to come back. But yeah, there's no mosquitoes.
you grew beans out there.
Yeah. But yeah, mosquitoes, there's gnats everywhere. You go through the progression. This farm here was Scott's aunt, happened to track where all the honey preserve is, what do they call it?
Nantuxet, is that Nantuxet hunting
I'm
ground?
not sure, but all these fields at one time were productive.
Yeah, you used to have a huge barn down
Yep, it's going.
there. Yeah. Barn, house, yeah, there was a lot of structures back there.
Yeah, she
Questions?
was- She was a bateman.
She was a baker, yeah, but she married George Hepner.
Yeah.
Which
He
was
lives on a house right on the lake.
where
Dave Field.
Dave Fields lived, right?
I know, I just looked right over the lake.
Yeah.
Right.
That's who I was trying to remember, Jim Hefner. That lived in that house, he's the one that used to chase us off from sledding down his driveway. I can understand that.
Yes.
How many acres do you farm?
This was 1,500.
A lot of ground.
There was a lot of ground, and as the new generation came on, we decided, maybe we didn't need to do that, so we sold off this. So we still rent some of the stuff we sold. We still rent the Powell farm and the Bowman farm, and we're going to do the Banks farm this year. So we still farming some of it. So we're farming 1,000 acres now, but it's still plenty. Yes.
And how far reaching does your business travel? I mean, do you ship out of country or all in?
Not as much as we used to. We used to send quite a bit of stuff to the Caribbean. We'd send cabbage to Puerto Rico, Cuban peppers to Puerto Rico. They really like them down there. Once in a while, things that way, but not a lot. We do a lot to Canada early in our season. Canada, we're a little nervous about this tariff thing because Canada is a great customer early in the season until they have their own, and then they buy their own. Wouldn't it be great if our own supermarket said, I'm not going to buy Mexican or Peruvian, I'm going to buy U.S. because we got our own, until you're a quarter more than the other guy. So yeah, when we go west to Texas, we go northwest Chicago, down to Florida. So yeah, we formed Eastern Fresh Growers in 1984. I hired a salesman that worked in Florida. He came up and sold for us, and it was to try to get us in touch with end users. We try to cut out some middlemen, because every middleman takes something.
Yeah.
So, and we were told by some of the brokers in Vineland, said, you tell Dad, you tell your sons, we're not going to buy from them now that they've got a salesman. About a week into the season, they were calling up. I got to have this. Yeah, well, it's not going to be as cheap as you think it's going to be. Well, yes, that worked out well. Then we brought in a couple of salesmen, and then eventually I went into the office. I used to run the packing house. Now I'm in the office, and now Fran, Melissa's husband, and Brandon, my other nephew, are there in the sales office. my son Alex is doing the field, the growing of it. He took over for Irwin. Our son is an engineer as well, so he took over for his uncle Irwin out there. He's fluent in Spanish. Melissa speaks Spanish like a native. She worked in the office for years, and she'd come in and just start rattling off to the men who the family was. Of course, she knew the kids from school. And you were or still are an ESL teacher?
I still am. I also teach basic skills, but I teach ESL.
Yep. And it's great to have, because a lot of these guys, even though they can speak some English, they're more comfortable with Spanish.
Right.
I can speak enough Spanish to get myself in trouble. I get my point across. But I tried one time to go. I had to go to Costa Rica, not Costa Rica, Dominican Republic, on business. So I was trying to talk business to these are government officials, and they acted like they understood me. So I know a lot of words, and a lot of them are not words you say in political situations. But yes. And I want to reiterate, all our families came here for a reason, to make a better life, and there's still people coming here for that, and we need to appreciate them. What percentage of Cedarville School is Hispanic now, you think?
Maybe 8%. It's not.
You think that low?
Yeah.
Man. Now Maggie went to Bridgeton High School, and all the kids in the advanced classes, half the kids were Mexicans, right?
Yeah.
They went to what's it called, what was the school they went to?
Excel.
It was a school in Bridgeton for kids. They would go on Saturday mornings as well.
Yeah.
So where you wanted to do more work, they did that. She's got friends. The one guy who used to work for us, he came to work for us when he was a teenager, probably 18, 19. He came there and he had friends from his hometown in Mexico that were working for us, and they were cutting lettuce. It's all piecework. The more you produce, the more you make. Mm-hmm. And he wanted to get in that crew, but he didn't know how to do it. So he convinced Juan, Cherry Squeeze. He was a little short guy. And Cherry Squeeze is a cartoon character in Mexico. But anyhow, his nickname was Cherry Squeeze. But he convinced Juan to let him work with the crew. So they said, you can work with us, but for half pay. We still had a guarantee he made at least minimum wage, but he was willing to work with them to half pay. I remember we were cutting lettuce on the Keel farm, and by the end of the day he was crying. Tears running down. He was still working, but he was crying. And over time, now he has his own farm. Farm's over there across from Stevie and Joey Millet's shop. He has that farm out there. He's got one daughter that's a lawyer in D.C.
Yep.
Another daughter that's a head teacher at what school in Bridgeton?
She's head of a
District.
district for ESL. For mission.
So they've done well, and a lot of nurses and carpenters and the second generation have done well. We had one guy work for us for years, Highlay's the father had been with us, 40 years anyhow, probably before but anyhow, but his son, second generation, he didn't understand stacking or manual labor was not in his vocabulary. You put a steering wheel in his hand, he was great. But yeah, so he's a young family and he drives truck for somebody now. But yeah, these second generation, maybe not so much to do the harvest and stuff. But yeah, and that's why everybody, every nationality was that way. You're trying to do better, do something different. Yes?
You ever find any Civil War artifacts or Native American artifacts in your land when you're plowing or this?
We haven't. When I was a kid, we had a garden next to the house. And I was out there digging post hole, and I hit a bone. So you had a post hole digger, I hit a bone. And so I took a shovel, dug that up, and there was a bone like this. And I was excited. I kept digging and digging, and I had bushels of bones. And Dad came home and said, that's just where they used to bury the old horses.
A dinosaur.
I found a horseshoe. That was the end of that. Dad got a big kick out of that. But no, there's as far as bones and artifacts and stuff, we had a dig, the Cumberland County Historical Society had a dig along the Gahansey, there near the Kansas Golf Course, just the north side of that. October? Patty and I went up there and we're digging and sifting and stuff. They found stuff there, and they know that that's a place where the Indians used to stay. They're right on the bluffs over the Gansey
Yeah.
River. And the fishing was good there.
I
Yeah.
wouldn't be surprised.
Vegas, their farm on the back
Yeah.
there. Kathy, when we had done that dig, she said, oh yeah, her dad used to find, a lot of arrowheads and axes and all kinds of stuff when they were out plowing the field there, because they were right
Right.
on the.
Well, that field you said it has a bluff down on Jones Island,
Right.
that'd be a good place to look right there,
Yeah.
'cause they like the high ground.
Yeah.
Well, that's not real high. They'll-
But I mean, it's higher than, yeah,
When Patty and I were going out, I said something about Mulford's Hill.
yeah.
She said, the hill in Cedarville? Where's that hill in Cedarville? We're on Mulford's Hill, right here.
It's right back by the tower there.
Everything is relative. If most of the ground is 10 feet above sea level and this is 20, that's a hill.
Yeah.
All right, well, thanks for your attention. Any
Thank
other
you.
questions?
Okay,
Appreciate it.
thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Maggie and Darren, for the AV skills.
Yes, thank you for getting the cool